Phillies have made a lot of options moves. They optioned Brock Stassi back to Double-A. They've called up Pavetta, Ben Lively. Let's get into the Phillies mailbag here. Frank Klose, 97.3 ESPN.com. He covers the Phillies, and his mailbag is full right now with questions from you guys out there. Let's bring him into the conversation here. Frank, welcome back, pal. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, gentlemen?
All is well. You got a Phillies team playing hot baseball all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's a nice change from the last 6 weeks prior.
All right, they've won 3 in a row, trying to make it 4 tonight down there in Atlanta. And one of the reasons is the offense. The offense has been turning it around. They scored 11 runs. They're starting to hit the ball. And one guy really hitting the ball, Odubel Herrera. This guy's been on fire all of a sudden. So Van wants to know, trade deadline's coming up. Is Herrera the future, the past? He's getting hot. Is it time to trade him, Odubel Herrera?
This is an interesting question because I think partially what led to this question was maybe the little bit of frustration that Phillies fans had along the way while Herrera hit a pretty putrid 183 in the month of May. So I wonder what led him to ask that question. Maybe it had something to do with the struggles. But if you remember, when the Phillies signed Herrera to that extension, the dollars and the number of years, I thought that made him much more tradable than ever before. You know, when teams acquire players, they love to know that the player is under team control. They love to know how much he's going to be paid so that they can appropriately budget. And not to mention, when you average it out per year, it's really not that much money for a player who's producing. That's if he's producing. So I think, though, the Phillies would not necessarily be looking to trade Herrera. But we saw with Ken Giles, you know, the Phillies were able to make a deal that netted them a whole lot in return. And if you look at a very similar type player to Herrera when he's going well, and that would be Adam Eaton of the Washington Nationals, who unfortunately he got hurt right after the Nationals traded for him. But the Nationals gave up a king's ransom to get Eaton, and Herrera profiles a similar type player, plays center field, bats left-handed, gets on base, kind of at the same clip, plays similar defense. So I think that he is somebody that could possibly get the eye of a contender who needs one little jolt. But for that to happen over the next 7 weeks, he really has to keep this up. Now, I don't think anybody thought Herrera was as poor as his play was in the month of May. But certainly he's going to have to do better if a team's going to acquire him. I mean, certainly if you're a contender looking for a boost, you're not going to be the type that lays a lot of prospects out there to take a chance. You know, if you're a contender and you're going to go for broke because you need a player, usually you want to make sure you're getting a sure bet. So a lot's got to happen over the next 7 weeks, but I think the Phillies will be all ears if somebody is interested in Herrera.
Frank Klose is with us. The Phillies mailbag is open as we do every day on Tuesday here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. What about veteran players, Frank? Do Kendrick and Saunders finish the year in Philly? Does Ty Kelly? Matt would like to know that.
Well, let's first look at Howie Kendrick and Michael Saunders. One of them is playing very, very well. The other is not. Now, Howie Kendrick is a really interesting player for a contender because, you know, he's a right-handed hitter. He's hitting very, very well. And really, this is no surprise. His whole career, he's been a very, very professional hitter, always hit in the upper 200s and around 295 every year without fail. And what we've seen from him with the Phillies thus far is a consistent bat. And you know what? If you're a contender, I'm thinking especially in the National League, somebody like Howie Kendrick might be very, very appealing to you. So if you know you have perhaps a hole at second base, if you have a hole in the outfield, if you need somebody that can pop in at first base from the right side or even play a little bit of third base, Howie Kendrick will fill that position just fine. And really that's what he did for the Dodgers last year when they sort of gave the starting second base job to Chase Utley. So I think he's going to get the Phillies are going to get a lot of interest on Howie Kendrick. And you know, if you remember, heading down the stretch, you want those professional at-bats for your pinch hitter. You might need a DH if all goes well and you make the World Series. So I think Kendrick will draw a lot of interest. But Michael Saunders, unfortunately, I think he's in a position where he's not even going to play much for this Phillies team, let alone set himself up for a trade. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see an outfield that's Odubel Herrera, Aaron Altair and Howie Kendrick straight through to the deadline. And if Kendrick gets moved, which I think there's a good bet, they might actually bring up a prospect at that point. And so what I think is going to happen long term this season is that Saunders is going to end up riding the bench, and I don't think he's going to have enough value for a contender to want to actually give up something of substance to go get him. Now, I think the Phillies would certainly give him away and eat most of the money if they found somebody to take him, but I think the fact that he's not really producing is going to kind of make him be a Phillies bench bat the rest of the way, and then when the season's up, they're going to exercise to opt out of the deal rather than go for that second-year option, and he'll kind of go away, but without the Phillies really getting much in return. And that's just unfortunate. I mean, he had a really good first half last year, but over the last almost calendar year, he hasn't been doing much of anything. But one name that you might want to look at is Pat Neshek. I think a contender would love to have him. He's been very, very consistent for the Phillies. Still, the only runs he gave up was that 1 2-run fluke home run to Michael Taylor of the Washington Nationals that just happened to hit the foul pole. So I think teams are going to want Pat Neshek. I think he's going to do what he did several years ago, which is make the All-Star team as a setup man, which led to his first All-Star appearance. And I think somebody's going to give the Phillies something for him because, let's face it, when you're heading down the stretch, you really need that back-end bullpen arm. I don't care what team you are. So he might be the one who moves. And Ty Kelly, which I think Matt isn't very high on Ty Kelly, which is why he asked.
Yeah.
But I think that was a matter of Brock Stassi playing himself out of his position. As you just mentioned, he got optioned to Double-A, and it's kind of a shame. You wonder if you're going to see Brock Stassi again.
Yeah.
He was given the opportunity. He could only hit just under 200, and Ty Kelly, he's not hitting much better, but at least he can play more positions than first base.
Frank Klose, 97.3 ESPN.com, at Frank Klose with a K on Twitter. Send him your mailbag questions. And how about Howie Kendrick, by the way? He's the spark plug for this team. He comes up, they start winning again. How important has he been, you start to wonder. But maybe that will add to his trade value. Let's get into the pitching. Nick Pivetta allowed 3 runs over 5 last night. He got hit in the hand. So we had to get, I guess he was around 100 pitches anyway. You saw Ben Lively over the weekend. Some of these young guys that have come up, what are you thinking of some of the young guys that we've seen?
I think you still see a lot of early career jitters. I think Pivetta, it's just a matter of him getting comfortable. Even it was just a real shame, watching that game last night, and he gets hit on the hand, and you kind of figure that, well, the Phillies were sort of going back and forth. Do we take him out? Do we let him try to hang in there and get that win? And I'm glad that they gave him that opportunity because he seems like the person, and I think he even said as much after the game, that really needed to get that first win out of the way for his own psyche. And I think Pivetta will be able to settle down a little bit. And, Bob McClure, the pitching coach, has even commented on Pivetta's ability to get through the 5th inning when he knows that a win could be imminent. So I think he's going to settle down a little bit. Certainly you have to be encouraged with what you got from Ben Lively so far. And he's going to get plenty of opportunity to show that he belongs in the major leagues, if for no other reason than the Phillies need those types of guys. And it's a shame that Zach Eflin, he ended up going onto the disabled list down in the minors with an issue they say that was not an issue when he was still up in the big league. So it's something that he aggravated down there in his elbow, something minor they believe, but it's an unfortunate setback because I think the Phillies would like to have Eflin back up in the major leagues at some point to see what he can do. But really, I think at this point you just really need to set these players loose and really get a good sense of where they're at and whether or not they can help the Phillies in the future. With Jeremy Hellickson struggling a little bit, he did okay last time. I think that they're not going to necessarily open up a spot by trading him. They might be stuck with somebody like Hellickson if he's not performing. But they want to give these guys the opportunity, and I think just getting them out there, getting them comfortable is going to be the biggest thing right now.
Yeah, Eflin will have his right elbow examined by a doctor today. He felt soreness in his last start. He got beat up in his last 3 starts with the Phils, so he was not pitching well. By the way, Roman Quinn also going to have his elbow examined by a doctor. So Phillies, whose minor league team is like 32-17, they are playing really well at the Lehigh Valley. having some injury issues stick their heads in there. Frank Klose has the mailbag with us here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. All right, Frank, let's hope for 4 in a row.
Hey, a very, very good chance against the Braves.